Hey guys, I'm back to continue talking about crafting really great character relationships. Just a short recap last time. If you haven't watched the video, you can. But we talked about giving the characters a history. It can happen on screen, off screen, on page, off page, before the story starts or develops with the story. And we also talked that they know each other too well. They know each other very well. And they share their vulnerability, okay? There's moments that they can be vulnerable, and this can be direct or indirect. So my next point is that these characters, they grow together. So these characters, they need to grow together. They need to grow as individuals in front of each other, and they need to grow closer. So Mulder and Scully start as co-workers, right? In fact, if you go to the very starting, Scully actually started working because she was supposed to debunk Mulder in the X-Files, right? And they're very opposites. Scully is the skeptic, and they're strangers, even though Mulder has a reputation. But with each season, they get closer and closer and closer, and they even end up together romantically, right? And then later with the reboot, they kind of broke that up and then put them. Anyway, yeah. So obviously, your characters don't need to get romantic, right? So as Jim, Pam, and Dwight, they grow and they change, they also end up growing closer together. So Pam and Jim end up being married with kids, but perhaps more significant than that is how close Dwight feels to them by the end of the series. They used to be enemies, particularly Jim and Dwight, and there's this beautiful relationship arc through the entire show. So in the first episode, Jim is always pranking Dwight to get under his skin. And in the last episode, Dwight has asked Jim to be his best man at his wedding, and Jim says he's going to pull out the best pranks on Dwight, and he does. But instead of the pranks that get under Dwight's skin, they're pranks that all lead to Dwight being happier for his wedding. And again, Jim knows Dwight so well that he knows exactly what to do to get a specific reaction. But in the last episode, he uses that knowledge to better Dwight's life. He knows exactly what to do to make things amazing for Dwight. Likewise, and here's a little spoiler because I know I have followers who have not finished all of Harry Potter. So you might not want to listen for a second. But likewise, I love how in the Harry Potter movies, when Harry explains he's a Horcrux and he has to die in order to defeat Voldemort, Hermione, who had a very rocky start with Harry and Ron in book 1, she says the line on the verge of tears, "I'll go with you." If your characters' relationships are going to grow together, we need to see something to drive it home. We need that validation. We need to see Jim using his pranking mastermind to make Dwight's wedding the best ever. We need to see Hermione willing to go with Harry to his death. I also really like Harry and Dumbledore's relationship. So in the 6th movie, Dumbledore talks about how Harry needs to shave, and he remembers how Harry used to be the boy who lived in a cupboard. Through a few lines, we get a sense of how Dumbledore has seen Harry grow, and of how they've grown closer together. Then, of course, Sherlock and John grow closer together too. We get a nice relationship arc when, in one episode, John is upset with that Sherlock's character is heartless, right? So there's this exchange. John goes, "There are lives at stake, Sherlock. Actual human lives. Just so I know, you care about them at all?" And Sherlock goes, "Will caring about them help save them?" And Watson goes, "Nope." "Then I'll continue to not make that mistake." "And you find that easy to do?" "Yes, very. Is that news to you?" No. "I've disappointed you." It's good. It's a good deduction, yeah. Don't make people into heroes, John. Heroes don't exist, and if they did, I wouldn't be one of them. Then all of that comes full circle when Sherlock has to fake his death, right? Watson visits Sherlock's grave, and listen to what he says. He says, You told me once that you weren't a hero. There were times I didn't even think you were human, but let me tell you this. You were the best man, the most human being that I've ever known, and no one will ever convince me that you told me a lie. So, there. I was so alone, and I owe you so much, but please, there's just one more thing. One more miracle, Sherlock, for me. Don't be dead. Would you do that just for me? Just stop it. Stop this. So often in great relationships, the characters' views of one another change too. There's this great exchange also in Sherlock where Watson says, "I'm just your friend," and Sherlock goes, "I don't have friends," and he's mad about it. So Sherlock goes from having no friends to feeling like John later is his best friend, right? And I love, though, even after this, Sherlock can't conceive that he can't understand that he would be John's best friend, right? And there's a part in the series where John's trying to ask Sherlock to be his best man in his wedding, and Sherlock it just goes over his head because he would never think that John would ask him to be the best man. He just can't imagine that. Okay, now the next point, this one's really important. And because I see this come up as a mistake with beginning writers. So you need to make your characters in this relationship thing, you need to make them foils somewhere. So a lot of times what I see is beginning writers, they want like, oh, I want these best friends to be such best friends that they make them all alike. Or I want this couple to like be so compatible and so amazing that they make them all alike. That's a great way to fail at writing a beautiful relationship. That's a great way to write a relationship that nobody really cares about. I know it sounds ironic, but it's true. So these characters, we talked about them growing. These characters can also grow because of each other. So because of John, Sherlock learns more about caring for others. And the characters in these relationships need to be opposites in some points. So Mulder believes in aliens and the supernatural, and Scully is a skeptic, right? They're opposites in that way. Sometimes we think that best friends should be completely alike, like I touched on. Don't make that mistake. Do not make them copies of each other. That's not how you create these relationships. When the characters foil each other and have opposites, they don't have to be complete opposites, but there has to be points that they are opposites on. We have more depth and more breadth to play with in their relationship. And if they are the same, they won't be able to bounce off each other for our amusement, and they won't be able to have all these dynamics in their relationship. An important point to remember is that these characters, they don't bounce off each other cruelly. They're not cruel to each other or mean-spirited. They're pals with differences, right? Even, like I said, even Jim and Dwight, opposites. Jim's always pranking Dwight, but when it gets down to it, he's not cruel to Dwight. The characters' oppositions, especially if it's paired with a sense of history, can lead to them maybe being nitpicky about each other. They might be opposites in little things, and so this can create like banters, right? The characters might be genuinely annoyed, but again, they aren't cold-hearted and cruel. The things they are nitpicky about should usually relate to their characterization. So you might not want to use like cliches like the fact that say, oh, Sherlock is horrible at squeezing toothpaste from a tube. Instead, it could be the fact that he keeps dead bodies in his fridge that irks John, for example. Cliches can often fall flat, but not always. There's a way you can use them. Sometimes they play off relatability, or it's funny because it's a cliche. So like when Mulder and Scully have to go undercover as a married couple, Mulder says, "Woman, make me a sandwich." And it's a cliche, but it's funny because it's a cliche and Mulder saying it, right? John complaining of Sherlock's look that I mentioned before, it plays into this nitpicky stuff too, as well as a sense of history, right? And as well as John knowing Sherlock too well. So the characters may have the same core beliefs, but different views or approaches to them. Let me say that again. The characters may have the same core beliefs, but different views or approaches to them. So it might just be like little things that they get annoyed over, or it can even be bigger things that they deal with here. Alright, so I'm going to end the video here, and I'll pick it up next time. There's just a few more points to make. But Yeah, so think about these things, these different elements I've talked about, and we'll pick up next time. Follow, subscribe, all those great things. Thank you for your support. And you can get my latest writing tips at septembercfox.com. Thank you. Happy writing!